coverage on the deadly mass shooting in Maine. Todd Pyro is here in the studio with what we know about this person of interest, Robert Card. But we begin with Molly Line, who's on the ground in Lewiston, where the sun is starting to come up with the very latest. Molly, I saw that they have expanded the lockdown area.
They have. They've now included the town of Bowden, which is actually Robert Card's hometown. So it's a little bit beyond the community where the car was found, and it's about 16 miles from where we are right now. They're also advising people, saying, please stay inside your homes, per Maine State Police, that they have more than 100 investigators, both local and federal, working to locate Robert Card. Many of those investigators are right here outside of the hospital. They have been working throughout the night, helping some of the people, the doctors, the surgeons, the nurses that have been trying to help those that were gravely wounded at these two shooting scenes recover from their injuries. Let's take a look at the timeline. At 6:56 yesterday evening, Lewiston police responded to 2 shooting incidents at a bowling alley and at a bar. At 8 o'clock, Maine State Police say there's an active shooting situation in Lewiston. By 10 o'clock, officials warned residents near the manhunt to avoid the area until an all-clear is given. It was not. By 10:25, Androscoggin County officials issued this countywide shelter-in-place order. By 11 o'clock, Lewiston police name Robert Card as a person of interest. When you take a look at the map of how close things are together, the two scenes where the mass murders were perpetrated, very close, a tiny bit more than 4 miles apart. Shemenji's Bar and Grill and Spare Time Recreation. Then the car, the Subaru, is found about 15 minutes farther down the road in the nearby community of Lisbon. The area surrounding Lisbon, particularly deeply wooded. There's also a long river that runs alongside that community. That shelter in place stays in place. Schools closed today. And people are beginning to talk about what they witnessed, what they saw, how they survived at these 2 shooting scenes, including that bowling alley. Take a listen.
Well, we were inside and just normal night of bowling, and out of nowhere, he just came in and there was a loud pop. Thought it was a balloon. I had my back turned to the door. And as soon as I turned and saw that it was not a balloon, he was holding a weapon, I just booked it down the lane, and I slid basically into where the pins are and climbed up in the machine and was on top of the machines for about 10 minutes until the cops got there.
Very harrowing, and there are, of course, those that did not survive. Today at 10:30 a.m., there's a press conference. The state police urging people, saying, please tune in to your local TV stations, social media or websites or live streams. They clearly want the community to know what is happening as this search continues. Back to you.
Hey, Molly, since you're right there, initial early reports were that he may have gone to a third location, a Walmart distribution center. But apparently that's not true, and they heard the news and they locked down immediately. So no trouble there.
Right. That was walked back, essentially. A Walmart spokesperson saying the shooting did not occur on a Walmart property, just flatly saying the shooting did not occur on a Walmart property. So that was walked back. So what we know about right now is that there were these 2 locations, and then the vehicle was found some 15 minutes away. And at this point, no sign of Robert Card. Hopefully we'll get some new information at 10:30.
Molly, I'm curious because there's a shelter-in-place order that was put in the town and the surrounding area. As you're out there reporting, are you seeing people walk back and forth, or do you see people taking heed and they're locked down?
You know, it was hard to tell during the overnight hours. It was very, very quiet when we came into town, and we could see just some law enforcement personnel kind of lurking around on streets. Even driving through the community, they clearly had people out kind of in a grid throughout the town. Now that the sun is up, the clouds are up, we are beginning to see some cars driving around. It's not a lot. At 7 o'clock in the morning with school canceled, we're not seeing a lot of people. We're seeing a few folks walk back and forth, but it is remaining pretty quiet.
Yeah.
All right, Molly, thank you very much. Live report from the hospital in Lewiston, Maine.
You know that town is just terrified.
Right. Up until this moment, that town was known for Ali Liston, the heavyweight championship fight and the controversy around it. That's the first thing you think about. Now we're going to always think about this. Meanwhile, we're learning more about the person of interest. Todd Pyro is upstairs with the latest. Todd.
Here's what we know. Police say Robert Card is a 40-year-old man from Bowdoin, Maine. His past raising some red flags for law enforcement. He's believed to be a trained firearm instructor and member of the Army Reserve. And according to reports, Card spent 2 weeks at a mental health facility over the summer. Police also say he recently reported mental health issues, including, quote, hearing voices and threats to shoot up a military base in Suffolk, Maine. He's also considered armed and dangerous. Card also studied engineering at the University of Maine from 2001 to 2004. That, according to a school representative. Card was last known to be driving that car right there, a white Subaru Outback with a black bumper. Police say that vehicle was discovered near a boat dock in Lisbon, Maine. Officials, as you've all said, expanding the shelter-in-place order beyond Lewiston as police continue their search for Card. Authorities said to give that update on the tragedy, 10:30 a.m. Eastern this morning. All eyes on Lewiston, Maine, as we try to find some answers. Back over to you.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, the FBI playing a role right now. Let's bring in Stuart Kaplan. He's going to play a role with us, former FBI agent. Stuart, right away, do you take over the investigation if you're the FBI in the bureau closest to Lewiston?
No, only time that the FBI will take the lead is if it becomes a multi-jurisdictional manhunt with respect to crossing state lines. However, because the FBI can quickly and readily mobilize its assets to assist state and local law enforcement, they're going to work hand in glove together.
And it sounds as well, Stuart, as if the FBI is going to be talking to a lot of people at the U.S. Army Reserve, because this guy was a reservist, reportedly. He was also a firearms instructor, reportedly. And he got in big trouble this past summer because he threatened to shoot up the National Guard post in Suffolk, Maine, where he was posted. And then he wound up going to a mental health facility for a couple of weeks. So you got to figure the Army's got a great big thick file on this guy already.
So here's the frustration in what we do for a living, and this is why it is real life and not for a made-for-movie type of scenario. You know, keep in mind that, yes, law enforcement is going to seek out the assistance of the Army, seek out the assistance of those mental health professionals that may have come in contact with Robert Card. But ironically, it's going to require search warrants, subpoena power, because in this day and age, as you readily are aware, we have to protect this type of person's privacy rights. And so given the laws that are in place to protect him, law enforcement is going to have to seek out these search warrants, which is going to require a prosecutor prepare those affidavits, and then it's going to go before a judge. A judge has to sign off on the authorization. And so that was being done through the wee hours of the morning, because really what law enforcement wants to know is to speak to these mental health professionals to find out the highs and lows. Is this person strictly homicidal? Is he suicidal? Because now law enforcement has to play a chess game with him to try to figure out what his next move may be.
But Stuart, why aren't you guys, as it relates to the FBI and the military, not communicating with one another? Okay, the FBI does the background checks every time you purchase a weapon. But you got the military that have the records of this guy who threatened to blow up, shoot up the base. But they don't tell the FBI that. So what is the barrier preventing the two agencies from communicating with one another?
Great question. And to your point, I spoke to a colleague of mine last night who's actually involved in this investigation. Maine has some of the most relaxed gun control laws throughout the United States, and they have what is called yellow flag laws, right, which is very different than red flag laws, such as the laws that we have down here in Florida. And one of the most distinguishing characteristics of that yellow flag law is that contact with a loved one or a relative or someone who is non-law enforcement cannot petition to involuntarily commit someone to a mental health facility. It only can happen if law enforcement makes the initial contact with that individual. So to your point, even though the Army may have been aware of it, or his loved ones or friends or family, unfortunately, given the laws, and keep in mind that Maine, it was only in the last 2 or 3 years that actually this yellow flag law came into play. Before, the yellow flag law, quite frankly, Maine had nothing in place. And so this was a compromise by the politicians in Maine to try to just, placate to the federal mandate, which wants to harden these type of loopholes. So the fact remains that if I am the closest person to this individual and I clearly and readily understand that this person is going through these mental health scenarios, I cannot go to law enforcement and have a petition issued to get him committed. And this is just a huge, big, wide hole in the system to allow someone who is committed for 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Yeah, they might after
We need to change the laws.
He was hearing voices, mental health facility for 2 weeks this summer. I wish that they had not let him out. Allegedly made threats to shoot up the National Guard base in Maine where he was training. What, in your experience, what about notifying the families? Because we woke up this morning, we know that 22 they're saying are dead. They're saying that number is fluid, though. They're not giving, that's what they think it is. The families, I was reading this morning, one mom can't get any information on her son's not answering his phone. He was in that bar playing pool with her ex-husband, and she's waiting. So when will we start to find out how old the victims were, what their information was, see their pictures, that kind of thing?
Phone fell. Go ahead.
We could probably still hear you, Stuart.
Yeah, can you hear us?
You can go ahead and answer.
Real life TV. So look, again, Lewiston is a very small police department. It only has 82 sworn law enforcement officers. And no matter how much they train and plan for the inevitable, this is going to be a quick catch-up game. And quite frankly, I'm very sympathetic, very empathetic to the families that just quite frankly are so frustrated by the lack of information. But keep in mind that law enforcement is strictly focused right now to try to, locate and apprehend this individual because they are obviously afraid that he may come out again and try to commit another mass murder. So, I'm empathetic and sympathetic, and so is the FBI, and so is state and local law enforcement. But keep in mind, it's going to take at least probably another few hours, probably into the afternoon, until they come up with a plan in place to just be able to marshal all of this information and then be able to make contact with the families.
Well, it's a massive scene too, Stuart. You're talking about 22 people, 2 separate locations. Then you got the police that are doing the pursuits right now.
You got the car.
You got the car. So it's just spread out right now.
Yeah, and again, as I say, and I kind of always poke fun, and we watch Netflix movies and we think, these type of scenarios are solved very quickly. It's an overwhelming, daunting task, and keep in mind, we have to anticipate that this Robert Card may be held to, a criminal justice trial. We want to make sure we don't make any mistakes. We want to collect it.
Right.
All right.
We got it. The other thing is they're knocking on doors because you imagine he gets out of his car and he goes, I think I'll just take over a house. And so the police got to knock on doors in this rural area. Someone just buried in the woods.
They're telling everybody, lock the doors and stay there until you get the high sign. Sorry, we had some problem with Stuart Kaplan's live view, but we continue. I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.